Welcome back to Taste for Adventure. Aaron, I've got my hipster hat and cardigan on. I'm extremely excited. I'm seeing a lot of paraphernalia in us. We must be talking about coffee beers.
Yes, let's wake up and smell the beer.
I'm ready to do that. First question: how do you add brew to your brew? How do you make a coffee beer? Or what are we looking at here?
Yes. So today we're specifically talking about, as a homebrewer, all of the different methods that you can add coffee to your beers. And there is a lot.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
Yeah, we have 5 different methods, actually, of adding coffee flavors and coffees to beers.
Okay. It's a good thing I'm already wearing my nerd glasses.
Yeah. So I thought maybe we could have a couple of different coffee beers.
Absolutely.
Talk about how these commercial brews added coffee to the beer. Okay. And then also talk about a few other ways that, as a home brewer, you can add coffee flavors to your beers.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess before we get too stuck into it, this is BJCP category what now?
Yeah, so anytime you're going to add coffee into beer, it will mostly be in BJCP category 30A. That falls in the spice, herb, and vegetable category.
Okay, I've heard of this category.
Yeah, now a lot of times you can have like a bourbon aged stout with coffee, and that might be more of like a specialty, or like in the wood aged specialty category. Okay. If it has a lot of the oak or the bourbon as well. But if you're primarily only adding coffee, it will definitely be in the BJCP 30A category.
Gotcha. I'm very excited about the coffee beers that we have today. Actually, all supplied by me. If you can't tell what kind of beers I gravitate towards by now, it's stouts, coffees.
Yeah,
I like other things. I like a nice wheat beer. I like a nice. I love a sour.
Yeah,
can't wait for the sour episode.
Yeah, we actually we have several coming up.
Yes.
But also lots and lots and lots about coffee.
Yeah. Big coffee guy.
Yeah.
I'm excited for so this isn't what we would call maybe this coffee special. This might be the first sort of shot. But I would love to do a coffee episode where, we make coffee on the episode, talk about that, maybe enjoy a nice coffee beer. A lot of coffee-related beer plans. So
definitely.
It's very exciting stuff.
Yeah, so just to kind of focus in all of the different coffee shenanigans that we have, today we're really going to be talking about how to add coffee in beer as a homebrewer.
Absolutely. I think we've got 3 really great ones. We've got Off Square's Bold Betty. We have Guinness's Coffee Nitro, which is kind of an interesting one from Guinness. And then we have Revolution's Cafe Deth, which is part of their Deep Woods series.
Yeah, always good stuff coming out of Revolution.
Love Revolution.
In the Deep Woods series. I have not had the Guinness one either, so excited to try that one.
Very nice, very nice. Well, let's start off with the Bold Betty. Let's wake up to coffee beers.
All right.
What have we got in front of us? It's Bold Betty by Off Square.
Bold Betty, which is a stout that they've added coffee to. Now, the can says, "We loaded this stout with generous amounts of flaked oats for a creamy mouthfeel and sweetness.
Okay.
The complex aroma is derived from cacao shells in the mash and Ecuadorian cacao nibs in the secondary. To add to the experience, we infused it with freshly roasted, cold brewed coffee.
Very nice.
She's been known to perk you up."
So it seems like the first method we're going to talk about is adding cold brew to your beer.
Yes. Okay. So of the 5 methods we're going to go over, adding cold brew to the coffee, to the beer is one of the ways to do it.
Of course.
And essentially, you brew a base beer just as you would on a completely regular brew day. But then knowing that you're going to be adding the coffee into it later.
Right. So no crazy, tropical hops or anything like that.
Right. Got it. So, and then you can make a pot of coffee, or it's very common to make like a cold brew coffee.
Right. Yeah. So if you're making cold brew, you'll make that maybe 24 hours in advance.
Right, and the very important thing to do when you're doing that is just to make sure that your pot and everything is as sanitized as possible.
Yes.
Because it is adding to the beer post-fermentation. So you want to be careful not to introduce any bacteria. So I would say that is the risk, maybe the downside of adding cold brew to the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But if you follow good cleaning practices, it's not a huge risk, especially if you're adding it to a beer that has already been fermented. A lot of times when you add cold brew, you're going to add it right in at packaging.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow.
you brew the beer, you ferment the beer out, you take your final gravity reading, you know what that base beer is.
Yes.
And then you will brew some cold brew coffee or some, any kind of coffee you want. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to add that into the beer right before you bottle it or keg it. And you can kind of add that in to taste. And then, once you do that, and then, throw it in the keg, there's not a huge chance of actually introducing too much bacteria or anything.
Not too shabby. So that kind of follows your credo of making a good base beer and then sort of augmenting it somehow. So theoretically, you could make maybe like an extra large batch of a really nice stout and then portion off a certain amount to experiment with coffee. Even.
Absolutely.
Wow, okay.
I love
Very
doing
nice.
experiments like that.
Yeah.
So, if you could do like a 10-gallon batch of beer, do 5 gallons of your base stout, and then, add some coffee into the other
Sure.
5 gallons.
Okay. Well, I'm getting a lot of... I'm actually getting a lot of roastiness. I'm getting a lot of chocolate because they were talking about those cocoa nibs or the cacao nibs and or the cocoa nibs and the cacao shells.
Yes. So, and that actually brings me to the second way that you can add coffee flavors, and that's actually by not adding any coffee at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah, you can use things like malts and cocoa nibs that can contribute a roastiness. A lot of cacao will be almost like a mocha. It'll be kind of chocolate and coffee.
Yeah.
You can add roast malts or very dark malts like a black patent malt, or there's actually some malts called like carafa malts and things like that are going to be very, very, very coffee forward. So you can get a lot of very authentic coffee flavors in a beer without adding any coffee at all.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Now for the malts, you can add those in the mash. And then for things like cocoa nibs, you can add those either in the boil or even later on, like in the secondary, as your beer is finishing up fermentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. It seems like there's like a little bit of a marriage, like adding cacao nibs or cocoa shells or what have you might bolster that coffee flavor, like you said.
Definitely, yeah.
So.
And it also gives it more of a well-rounded flavor. And it's just not one note. Like, here's your base beer and here's some coffee. When you have multiple flavors that are all kind of overlapping, they can really create something really nice together.
Yeah, there's definitely a symbiotic relationship between the roastier malts, cacao, and coffee.
Yes.
But
I don't think there's any really right or wrong way to add coffee to beers. It just depends on kind of own personal preference and what fits your process.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many ways to just brew coffee.
Right.
You've got pour over, you've got your traditional drip, you've got immersion, you've got the cold brewing. It's its own method. Yeah. There's a lot to brewing coffee.
Yeah.
So, if you're brewing coffee beers, try a lot, make a, even subdivide, if you're doing a 10-gallon batch, even subdivide that into 1-gallon little, separate ones and do a lot of different methods,
Yeah.
A lot of different good ways. And of course there's you've got the coffee consideration.
Right.
We've got some great coffees here from Smugglers right now. Hashtag not sponsored. But there's a lot of really great coffees out there.
There are.
So, wow, it's almost endlessly customizable.
Pretty much, yeah. And as a home brewer, you have even more options than even a professional brewery might have.
Yeah.
So as a home brewer, you can actually just straight up add booze into your home brew, right?
That you can.
So you can also do things like make tinctures.
Ooh, okay. So we're getting into...
Yeah, so this is one method that I have used before when making a coffee beer is a tincture is when you take alcohol, like a pretty high strength alcohol, and then you put it in with like an herb or a spice or a coffee bean or something, and the alcohol will actually extract a lot of those flavors.
Wow.
And then you actually add that whole like boozy alcohol.
Yeah. It's like an infusion.
Like an infusion.
Yep,
you can add it directly into your beer, and that's something that homebrewers are able to do. And depending on like local like laws and regulations, I think a lot of breweries are not allowed to just straight up add alcohol like into their brews.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's probably why you get a lot of barrel aged, like bourbon barrel aged beers. You can't actually add the bourbon.
Right.
Okay.
So, but as a home brewer, you're not restricted that way.
Absolutely.
And that is a really cool way to do it.
Wow.
You can even do that on a super small scale, like you said. You just
right.
Get a little sanitized Tupperware container or something. Add a few coffee beans. And you just go right to the top of the coffee beans with like a bourbon or a rum or something, or even like a vodka if you want to do more like of a flavorless liquid.
Wow. Interesting.
I actually made a beer, a Russian Imperial Stout one time that I did. I found a vanilla flavored vodka.
Oh, that would be so good.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really good.
I added the coffee beans and I soaked them. I made a tincture with vanilla flavored vodka.
Yeah.
Let that soak.
Madness vanilla coffee stout.
And like, I could have just straight up drank that vanilla coffee tincture,
God.
but I ended up adding it to the beer, and it was a phenomenal success.
I wonder how that would translate to putting that in your coffee instead of cream or sugar. Ooh,
baby.
Oh my God! All right,
not gonna work.
Oh man,
that's your weekend.
I was
coffee
gonna say that is definitely Saturday. You wake up at the crack of noon on Saturday.
Right.
It's like, all right, well, it's already noon. Well, I never want to stop drinking this beer. However, we have two other beers that I would like to never stop drinking.
All right.
We have Guinness's Nitro Cold Brew coffee. Yeah, I never get tired of watching that pour, that nitro, that sort of deviation. It's a perfect pour every time.
It's beautiful.
Look at this crisp line of head. There's such a division of head. It's amazing. God, I love a nitro. I think even more than a coffee stout, I love a nitro beer. But,
especially when they're dark beers. I've had a nitro like IPA before.
Ooh, that's weird.
And it just didn't land well with me.
No.
But yeah, I do love a nitro beer too.
So do you have any incredibly specific flavor notes that you're getting on the nose?
I'm telling you, like, this smells to me exactly like the mocha Java flavored Jelly Belly, like the jelly bean.
Right, yeah.
It smelled, even, as you're pouring it, I smelled it.
Right, just wafted, just hit you in the face.
It took me back to like when I was 12 years old, eating these, when I, first discovered these Jelly Bellies. Right. It smells to me exactly like that jelly bean.
It is very powerful. I don't have quite the nasal memory that you do, but
they say that's the sense that is most strongly attributed to memory.
Yep, the one closest tied to memory.
Yeah.
That is, I find that true. I mean, there are definitely times where I'm just walking around, I get a scent, I'm like, oh boy, I'm back in high school. It's very coffee. Coffee is probably. I mean, this was brewed probably with coffee in mind.
Is there even beer in this?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, it is. It's Nitro Cold Brew coffee.
Yeah.
Beer with coffee, because it tastes.
Might be more coffee with beer.
It might be. Very, very coffee.
Yes.
But like a coffee flavored drink type of thing, almost like one of those like Starbucks cans, like the flavored coffees or whatever.
Yeah. Now this is now I'm just getting on my tongue. This is a different body than maybe your traditional Guinness. I'm getting very strong cold brew notes. If you've drank regular coffee, drip coffee versus like cold brew, there's like quite actually a stark difference. And usually coffee and cold brews maybe a little bit more watered down is such a bad. It's got such a bad connotation in my mind. I guess it would be more thin, more light bodied.
You know what? And I am definitely detecting that this is much like lighter, less full-bodied than a traditional Guinness.
Right, yeah. It's not like that.
Which you wouldn't guess from the head because
it's perfect.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the Nitro helps to contribute and like puff up that head and keep it floating around so much. But it is a thinner bodied than a traditional Guinness. Yeah.
Now, do you think that would get dinged? Do you think that would get dinged points?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I would like that to not get dinged because I very much enjoy this.
So, I liked the flavor of the Bold Betty more. Okay. But I like the aroma and mouthfeel of this.
I was going to say, so this is maybe more of a visceral experience for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This one, I mean, it smelled absolutely fantastic.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The mouthfeel, you just can't go wrong with Nitro on like a stout and a coffee stout. But I still liked the Betty's like flavor.
The Betty does have, I think, a little bit better of a flavor.
Yeah.
It's got more of that more coffee qualities, I guess I should say. This is very much like I don't even want to fathom guessing how they brewed it,
Yeah.
But I wonder if they, had a lot of coffee-ish adjuncts, maybe. It's a term I've heard you throw around.
So
clearly cold brew came in at some point.
It just says beer with coffee and natural coffee flavors.
Interesting.
So, and it, Nitro cold brew coffee. So we have to assume that it has, cold brew coffee in it. But then the other thing, it says natural coffee flavors. So I wonder if there's like some kind of like a coffee extract they put into this.
Could be.
Given that Guinness is such a huge brewery,
yeah,
it'd probably be hard for them to just brew a cold brew batch of coffee.
Industrial amounts of cold brew.
Right. Maybe. So I bet there is some degree of like artificial like coffee flavoring in here.
Yeah, instant coffee.
Yeah, and that's maybe where the flavor is not standing up to the more authentic flavors in the Bold Betty.
Right. Yeah, so you get the, you get the external sort of senses going, but you're not really getting that internal kind of taste sensation that you might get with a smaller brewery.
Yeah, still not bad though. I'm digging this beer. It's really unique.
Yeah. I think it should be noted that I drank all of the other beers in the packages.
You say that every time.
Well, it happens when you buy the beer, you drink the beer, and you like the beer enough to say, hey, we should do it on the show. You
know what? That's much better than buying the one-off on the clearance rack and then finding out that you shouldn't have done that.
No, I'm sure we have an episode like that somewhere.
So, the Betty added some cold brew coffee.
Yes.
And so did Guinness.
Yes.
We talked about adding in brewing like malt ingredients to get a coffee flavor, and we talked about doing a tincture.
Yes.
Seems like Guinness also added a coffee flavoring additive.
Yeah.
There are definitely a lot of those out there available, even like on a small scale for home brewers.
I would say so.
So yeah, you can search for flavor extracts. Stop at your local homebrew shop. A lot of them are fruit extracts, but I'm sure you can get coffee flavored extracts as well to dose in. And again,
I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, and that's another one that would be kind of at the end of fermentation, right before packaging, like when you would add the cold brew in.
Interesting. Okay. Well, you mentioned it before. You had a coffee IPA, which apparently didn't land well. But what are some other ideas of non-stout beers with coffee?
So some of the probably the most unexpected style that I really enjoyed that had coffee in it was like a blonde ale.
Oh. Yeah, Blue Moon has a coffee blonde.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, it's really good. I don't think it's the one you're talking about, but Blue Moon has a coffee blonde. I can't find it anywhere except in big multi-packs. But what are you talking about?
So that's become a little bit more common, is just for the absolute mind-blowing aspect of here's a beer that is very pale, but it has big coffee flavors.
Yeah,
and that's incredible, right?
I'm in.
So
if it's coffee and beer, I'm in.
I've had white stouts that had coffee. I've had blonde ales with coffee, And the way they get that, I mean, obviously coffee is going to be kind of pretty dark, right?
Usually.
But there is a method called dry beaning.
Yes.
So
yes.
similar to dry hopping, what you're going to do is either put the whole coffee bean in, or very coarse grind.
Yeah.
So you're not going to like really distribute a lot of the color. You also are going to go with like a medium or light roast.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it won't like really be like pitch black.
Gotcha.
And you can, so when you add the beans into the beer, you will darken the beer a little bit.
Sure.
But if you dry bean it, you're not going to add as much color. So if you wanted to go for this like illusion beer where it's very light colored but has a big coffee flavor, no matter what kind of base beer you go after, I would recommend dry beaning as the homebrew style to go to.
Yeah, I could definitely see brewing something and being like, slide it over to your friend, and then your next beer thing, like, hey, try this one. Ooh, okay. What's this? Some kind of wheat? It's like coffee.
Yeah,
that's a real eye opener.
it is. It's really mind blowing,
Right.
but it can be done extraordinarily well.
I love it.
Yeah.
I also love our next beer in the flight.
Yes, which is dry beaned.
Yeah, is it dry beaned?
It is dry
Hey,
beaned. Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Well, that's perfect segue then.
Yes.
Almost
so,
like we planned it.
Yeah. So, and what beer is that one?
That is the Revolution, the Cafe Deth, part of their Deep Woods series.
All right. So that one is their beer Deth's Tar.
Yes.
That has the coffee added to it. So it's a variant on their Imperial Stout Deth's Tar.
Kind of like what we were talking about earlier, just pulling a batch out of some beer that you got and
exactly.
Hey, throw coffee in this one.
Yep.
Last, but certainly not least, Cafe Deth from Revolution Brewing.
Revolution, yes.
Nice Chicago brewery.
Oh, baby. All right, so...
Yeah, that hit you.
And you know what? The first thing I'm getting is not the coffee.
What are you getting? Are you getting the bourbon barrel age?
Yup.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Adding coffee to a bourbon barrel aged beer.
I'm getting a ton of wood and bourbon first. Yep. Coffee, like a distant second.
Yeah. But, I mean, this is what you want from a bourbon barrel stout. This is very, what would you describe it as? Chewy? Is that just chewy the right word?
Chewy is the right
learning
word.
The vernacular.
Yeah. It's very it's a very full-bodied beer.
Yep.
Probably mostly from the alcohol being, coming in at just under 15% alcohol. Very big-bodied beer. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, this is... I hesitate to call anything my favorite anything, but this is a contender. Yeah. For like favorite beer.
Favorite beer, like of the show, or like favorite beer?
Like favorite beer.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, dude, I would. If I just had tons of disposable income, it would just be like friends come over like, hey, what beer you got? It's like, oh yeah, I got like 6 or 7 racks of Cafe Deth, and just grab one. One's gonna do it. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the layman in me, but I love a gigantic bold flavors.
Yeah. So, and as we said, this one has that dry beaning method of adding the coffee.
Yes. Have we covered all of the different methods?
I'm just looking at my notes here. I think we have, except for, actually, this is another method. It's probably the easiest and the safest if you're worried about any kind of cleanliness.
Okay.
Or, worried about, if you ever are worried about adding any bacteria, post-boil or anything like that, you can add coffee into the boil.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, because, if you add anything in via the boil, that's going to sanitize it, right?
Yeah,
completely.
naturally.
Like pasteurization and all that. So, You can do that. The only thing that I would caution you on is that it can make the beer come off very harsh and more bitter than if you added it on the cold side.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's not like so maybe one of the typical styles for sort of coffee is the immersion brewing. You know, you're going to get that in your French press, your AeroPress kind of thing, where you are you're literally immersing the beans or the grounds into the liquid that so you're essentially making coffee with wort.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could see that working. I could also see that causing a lot of bitterness, especially with maybe more delicate coffees.
Yeah. So, and then the other aspect, in addition to potentially adding bitterness or astringency, is that when the beer ferments, it has a lot of foam. It has all this, so it can blow off a lot of the more delicate coffee flavors as well. Yeah. So that is one that it can be done. It has been done. It has been done very successfully, and it works really well if you're worried about adding anything in your after your post boil part of the brew.
Okay.
So just to kind of recap here, all of the ways that you can add coffee to beer are by using no coffee at all, just adding things like cocoa nibs and coffee-flavored malts into the beer. You can dry bean the beer, which is putting a whole or coarse ground bean in the beer in the secondary. You can make cold brew or coffee after you're done brewing the beer. When it's done fermenting, right before it's ready to package, just add coffee straight into the finished beer. As a home brewer, you can make a tincture. Boozy beans of coffee, really. Okay. Pick your favorite booze. We do recommend that you pick an alcohol that is 40% or higher, so like an 80 proof or higher alcohol, in order to get that proper tincture extraction.
Yes.
And then make sure it's sanitized as well.
Okay.
And then also you can add an artificial like coffee extract flavoring.
Okay.
That's the quick and easy way. And then you can add some coffee beans in the boil like you would like an adjunct flavor.
Right.
So those are all the ways that we can think of.
Yeah, lots of methods.
Lots and lots of methods. Most of them are tried and true, and really it's just whatever you're comfortable with.
It's
or
personal preference.
Yeah, and your preference.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds kind of like we're wrapping up here. Talk about some interesting plans for the future. I am a commentator on the podcast Sci-Fi Cross Sections. We talk about science fiction movies, shows, occasionally games. We haven't covered books, but I don't think we're opposed. We dissect it, we talk about it, we tell you what we think about it. I've talked to the host, my friend Colin, who has expressed great interest in being on an episode of the show here.
That's
It'd
great.
be a lovely collaboration, I think, and also have you on, cross section. So hopefully that comes to fruition in the very near future.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, he would. So we've got Colin sort of in the hopper. He's ready to go. We'll need to discuss some beer options. I think with him.
I think sci-fi themed beers maybe.
Sci-fi. Hey, if we
really
can get some
or
sci-fi themed beers, something like
beers
that.
Beers with galaxy hops.
Galaxy hops. Yeah, lots of options. So we've got that episode in the hopper.
Great.
Very excited about that. But check out Sci-Fi Cross Sections, iTunes. Apple Play or Apple Podcasts, I think they're called now. Google Play Music, Spotify is a big one. You can find them anywhere. We actually just had our 100th episode at the time of this recording. We covered 2001, A Space Odyssey. So thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely looking forward to get him in on the show.
Awesome. And, I have been listening to Sci-Fi Cross Sections during my brew days.
Yes, I appreciate that.
So, yeah, when, instead of playing music or whatever, it's been nice listening to you guys really have a good time and talk about some of, my favorite movies anyway. So.
Yeah. before we go, let's check in on our fermenting Altbier. The airlock has been still for a couple of days, and there's not much foam on our beer. So Aaron will take off the lid for a hydrometer reading. And the gravity is 1014, so it seems to have fermented completely. Next, we will start the lagering cold storage phase.